Guys, we made it to review number 50, and this time, going back to Bissell, it's time to review Swish. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for stopping by here again. The Best Beers in Me. Beer reviews from Maine, New England, and beyond. Like I said, it's time to review Swish. So she's adding a lot to this video.
Yeah, I will. This is fairly new too. May?
Came from the last release of the season, May 10th.
May 10th.
I do believe. So less than a month in the can.
Mm-hmm. A month tomorrow.
Can smells good. So this used to be 100% my favorite beer on the whole planet.
You would stand in line for hours for this beer.
And I just don't think it is anymore, but we're going to see. So we've done this review like 3 or 4 times over the last few months. One time I just didn't like the way it was going. Another time the audio wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And one time I think it ran out or something. I don't remember.
But I like Swish. I'll review it again.
All right, well, we're going to have to.
I can smell it from here.
Now it's review number 50, so kind of like a milestone video, so it's appropriate, I guess. Anyways, it's very cloudy, hazy. Can't see through it.
This looks lighter than I remember it looking.
Yeah. That's pretty much what it looks like these days. It used to look a little darker.
I thought
It used
so.
to have a different color years ago. I'll see what we got for a nose.
I'm getting pine.
Pineapple, mango, I get. A little piney.
Mm-hmm. I get the pineapple, but I'm getting some pine.
Used to blow me away with the aromas, and it doesn't anymore, and I don't know why. The cans, they don't have that it. I don't know what it is.
Do you think it's the beer itself, or do you think it's just we've had so many different IPAs that
it's probably both. I guarantee the beer has changed, but so has my palate.
Right.
So, all right, let's dig into it, and then we'll talk some more about it.
Cheers.
Cheers, you too.
I'm getting pineapple.
It's got a good bit of a bite to it. Not as big as it used to, but it's not super soft like some of the other Maine beers lately. Definitely some pineapple.
Mm-hmm. I get the pineapple. Do you get a
dankness?
Yep. Do you get almost like a little bit of? I get like a slight tangerine. Not really an orange. I don't know. Maybe like an orangey.
Yeah, I don't think I get that.
I do. More of a tangerine.
It's just it doesn't wow me like it always used to, and I don't know why. This used to be the beer. The beer. This is the beer that I always wanted.
I know.
And the last few years, it just hasn't hit with me all that much. Still decent.
I knew
It's got a great can.
you were changing
Swish on the
when we
side.
went to the brewery in Portland. You got a Swish and I got a Here's to Feeling Good all the time. And we swapped tastes, and you said, I actually think I like Here's to Feeling Good better.
Yeah,
Which blew me away.
I did. You can see a picture of that right now. That's when things started changing in my book. Now they did change what I thought was the original recipe, but it actually was the second recipe. And then they changed it. They dropped Apollo hops, which Noah thinks doesn't make a difference to this beer. I've heard him talk about it on the podcast, but
You disagree?
I think it did. I think it took away some of that, I don't know, that oniony, garlicky, and dank. And it just used to be way brighter, too. This used to like have everything that I always wanted, and it just doesn't.
It used to snap like it was.
But it's probably just me because people still go nuts for
Although,
this. I see people
in the last
posting about it.
3 years or so, I've had quite a few different IPs, so maybe my palate's changed too. But even for me, this has a little bit of a bite, but not like what I remember the first few times I tried it.
Yeah, I mean, the can is awesome. So I don't know, this year they haven't had the black tops or the black pull tab, but it's a sexy black can. Swish on the side sideways and the big Bissell logo on the front.
This is still a good beer. It's different than what I remember it the first few times. I do think it's different.
And we even got it in the fancy Bissell glassware,
Right.
which should make it taste better.
But it still has a very good flavor. I will say that.
It just is never going to be what I remember it as. So, as you see, these cans are a little old and gross, but black pull tab on that one. And this is the one that has like the black top with the black pull tab. And for whatever reason this year, they were all just regular. Maybe you can't get the black tops anymore. I don't know. Or
You
maybe
would
they
you
got
would
too
travel
expensive.
to Portland 3.5 hours from here specifically for a Swish
No,
release.
I used to love going to Swish releases. So I did a little like deep dive into the archives of Bissell on Facebook and was looking at all the old Swish releases and notes and looking at some of my old pictures and my old check-ins. And Swish releases used to be an event. It used to be so much fun. I think the first one I went to, actually I wrote it down, December 5th of 2015 was the first time I went to a Swish release. Got a case of Swish with a little bit of substance. Had my first Swish on draft that day. I was a Rate and Love fanboy. There's a picture of it right here. Then I lost my wallet.
Where did you have your first Swish? Was it at Marsh Island or Barrel Tolls?
Marsh Island. I went down to Marsh Island for a brew day and they surprised me with 2 beers. First one was Dinner from Maine Beer Company. I'd never had it.
Great beer.
And it blew me away. And then I had Swish, and there's actually a review, a different beer review, not from this channel. Something that me and a buddy did one night a long time, well, back in 2015. You can maybe able to find it out there on YouTube. And maybe I'll cut a little segment right here where I talk about how Dinner just blew me away. And then I said what probably is going to ruin me for the rest of my life is Swish by Bissell Brothers. So, if I have the video, here it is. To be fair, I've had some amazing beer today. I've had Maine Beer's Dinner for the first time ever.
Dinner is amazing.
Blew my mind.
Yep.
And then what probably ruined me for the day was Bissell Brothers Swish. Unfucking real. And then I drank something like this garbage. So there it was. And so like I said, I called it that day. That beer had changed everything. And it did for years. I went down to releases, stood in line, whole events, the lines got bigger, Bissell Brothers moved. It was crazy. And I had fun doing it.
So just a little history of our relationship. Pretty sure the only reason he asked me to go away with him the first weekend we ever went away together was so that he could get the second case of Swish. I'm pretty sure.
So that was October 2018. I think that was the first time, and look, there's a friggin' fruit fly.
I know.
When we shared beers, these fruit flies, even in the middle of winter, will come out of nowhere.
I don't know
and
where
just
they come
one.
from.
There's always just one.
Yep.
And
A
it doesn't
lone
matter
fruit fly.
if we're in a different room or in this room, one fruit fly. Anyways, so that was the first time that I can remember that they were allowing one case per person. Might have been the second time, but either way, it was a case for me, case for you, 2 cases for me, and I was super happy.
So I have to tell you, that's the one and only time I ever stood in line for any beer release. And it was fun. It was cold that day. It was.
It was.
It was windy and cold, but like everybody was super excited and everybody was socializing and like talking back and forth. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. I don't know. I still say the craft beer community is like some of the best people I've ever met. Such nice, we've met so many nice people at the breweries and the beer releases and
that was your introduction into the
yeah.
craft beer.
And so at that point, I stood in line for a case of Swish, and I didn't like beer at that point.
So the recipe is mostly Golden Promise, which is a great malt.
And where does that come from?
That comes over in Europe somewhere.
Okay.
And I just heard recently that Maine Malt House up in Mapleton, here the local maltsters, are working on like the American version of the Golden Promise, and they're going to start growing it.
Oh, nice.
Who knows what that's going to be? Because they make some excellent products.
So they do, but it's always so nice to buy local.
And Bissell Brothers uses as much as they can of that stuff. We've talked about it in a past review. It's the Golden Promise with a few other, like flaked wheat, I think. But the hops are Citra, Mosaic, and Simcoe. And it used to be Apollo, which I guess they use just as bittering hop. But I've homebrewed my own version of this, and I use Apollo hops. And when I open that bag, I swear to God, that has that smell that I remember Swish smelling like back when I first drank it. But when I was researching Swish today, I saw their original release was at Thirsty Pig, and it was a one-off beer, and it was a different Swish. It was, I mean, they were just barely open. And it Falconer's Flight, Amarillo, and Citrus, so completely different hops. Falconer's Flight, pretty much the main hop that's in Substance, was in Swish, and that was in May of 2014. So I tried to find, and I did find, when their first can release was in January of 2015, and there was 80 cases of Swish for the first release, which is the lowest number I've ever seen.
But did they have any idea at that time, like, how popular this beer was going to be?
I think they had idea, but no. They didn't know what they were doing. Like, they didn't know what they were opening. Pandora's box of...
So didn't Peter and Noah start out at the Thirsty Pig?
Yes.
They did.
Yeah. Peter was living above it and got a job for Noah.
Yep.
And that's where...
And so that's another place, if you're down in the Portland area, you should totally check out is the Thirsty Pig.
Yeah.
Great place. Great owner. She's a great person. Just
homemade sausages.
Yeah.
And you got to have a substance when you go there.
Homemade sausages, good beers on tap. So if and like I said, that's where I think Peter and Noah started out. But as a side note, if you're ever in that area, you should definitely check out the Thirsty Pig.
Yeah. And so that was the first ever time they made Swish. And then as we move into 2015, after that debut release, they started having roughly 140 to 160 cases of release. And that was back in the days when they still had the white can with the...
And they were still running out, I'm sure.
The little sticker label.
Am I wrong? Before they got to the line?
Because they couldn't believe when they first saw lines.
Yeah.
And people lined up for years to get Swish. After the first season, April 2016 that was the end of the second season. And I saw that they had 310 cases of Swish. You can see how it was getting bigger.
They were like doubling every release.
Well, not every release, but like they always amped it up for the beginning.
No, but if you go from the beginning up to 2016, they started with 80, went to 120, 140, and then at this point they're at 310. Yeah.
2015, the season opener only had 160 again. And it always changed because...
Why?
Sometimes they did like a double batch, and sometimes they had to do a lot of kegs. Bissell's always released a lot of kegs in the Portland area.
Okay, yep.
And so Swish would be on tap a lot of places. So if you can't get it at the brewery, you could still find it in restaurants.
Right.
So then that 2015 was when, like I said, when I was at Marsh Island, got my first taste of it, blew me away. So I went to my first can release in December 5th, 2015. Lost my wallet and all this and that. And there's a...
That's that trend of yours. You lost your wallet last year in Vegas.
I did. But luckily the security found it. Mommy Food Truck was there that day. And that's the first time I had seen a food truck. So they do like, what's those cheap noodles called? Ramen?
Ramen?
They do ramen, like real ramen.
Okay.
And it's delicious. And then they started doing it with bacon. That was unreal. Yeah, so I got my Swish, was so excited. Was out in the parking lot. Was putting my beer away. I had set my wallet on top of the vehicle for whatever reason. And went to Walmart. And as I'm out in the car at Walmart, I realized I lost my wallet. Went back looking for it, couldn't find it, went into Bissell.
I'm hoping you tell me it's still on top of the Traverse.
No. So, I had taken, at the time, like $500 was all my money I had that I took for the weekend. I'm like, this could be a fun weekend. We're going to go to several breweries. And I still had my credit card, so I racked up the credit card bills because I lost all that cash. Somebody found my wallet, messaged me on Facebook.
So where were your credit cards if you lost your wallet?
That's a good question. My ex must have had one on her purse. So, guy gets a hold of me. He's like, found your wallet over on whatever street. Wow. It was a street right on... If I had just looked a little harder, it was right around the corner, or he found it on the street. And I'm like, well, yes. So he gave me a cell number. I met up with him. I got it. Look, there's $20 left in it. So, I'm all saying that he took it, because if he did, why would he leave $20? Unless he was like being nice to say, hey, here's gas when I get home. Somebody took my money. And that should have been a sign.
But then here's the thing: if someone just found your wallet, why are they gonna just leave $20 and then throw it back on the ground? That makes no sense. But
I got my wallet back. Still had a good weekend. Came home with lots of Swish. Was happy, even though I lost all that money. That season ended. I don't have any notes about that. So the next season kicked off October of 2016. 340 cases for the first release. So again, that's following along, that's the biggest release I've seen yet. October 12th. Now, this is the day I was telling you about where Maine dinner came out same day. It was the longest line I ever saw. And I'm no exaggeration. I got a few pictures I'll put up right now. There was 1,000 people in line. They sold through, I was looking on the Facebook, 550 cases. Now, 330 were Swish, but they also had Substance. In 80 minutes.
Wow.
And that's when they first decided to open up at 10 a.m. for cans only, because the lines were getting so big, and it was a brilliant move by them. Sell cans until everyone in line's got them, or until they run out, then go to draft. So you couldn't get a draft release, or a draft pour until the can release was over.
Right.
At 11:20, they got to actually open early, because they didn't open until 12 usually. Because cans were gone, and there was still a ton of people
Here's the
in line.
thing, though.
Luckily, I was in line to get it, but...
I think that a lot of people still really pine for the Swish. Like,
I
no
know
pun
they do.
intended. But the availability is so much different now. We can go to Milo and buy 4-packs,
Right.
and they're still there. Like, you don't go stand in line, so...
But this was like... What I'm describing it now in 2016 November was like the peak of insanity. So, at that point, dinner, they were selling tickets online, and the tickets were going in like 6 minutes. Because before that, people were tenting out on the side of Route 1.
What the heck? This is like
To get the main
concert
beer.
ticket.
So, I'm telling you, this was why.
I want to ask
it
a
was
question.
So fun back.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to ask a question before I forget it. So, we've watched videos and we've listened to podcasts and things of Noah back in his college days when he first started brewing in his apartment and all like the stoves that he ruined or whatever.
Yeah.
So is this one of the recipes that he started then, like way back in the beginning when he first started brewing? Is this like one of the, I know like...
He's never talked about it.
I'm curious, like is this one of the OGs, like the original...
Yeah, not that I've heard from any of them. I listened to all of them, but that's a good question. And you'd have to ask now.
I will.
I don't know.
I'll ask.
I have not heard him say that.
The next time we see him in Milo or wherever, I'm going to ask. But I'm curious.
But there is actually there's an episode of where they talk about Swish a lot. Him and Matt. Maine Beer Dinner had come out, and Epiphany came out by Foundation.
Yep.
All right around the same time. To me, Dinner, like I always say, Hetty Topper was heavily influenced on Substance, and I think Dinner was a big influence on what became the actual Swish recipe, because they have the same hops. They have very similar taste, in my opinion,
Right.
except for they don't have the Golden Promise. So anyways,
No, and that's the one that's from the Golden Promise is the one that Maine Malt House is looking to
try to make something similar. So that was like the height of insanity. The whatever you want to call it back then. It was insanity. It was like Beatlemania. That's what it seemed like.
Swish Mania.
People would have to be in line early, and I'd get there.
So honestly, I loved you like right from the start, but I thought you were a little odd because you had such fascination for Swish.
Well, this was the beer.
Yes,
This was the can.
That
I looked
you
for.
would talk about Swish all the time. Like you had to
And
have your
maybe-
Swish. Like
People, the chase is better than the catch. There's a song that says that.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't think so, because I really loved the beer. It wasn't... The chase was fun. Then the event
Yeah.
of a release day
so, I
was
have to tell you, it's
wicked
not what
fun.
I remember. But sitting here listening to you reminisce and talk about the releases and the good times and this and that and the things that you enjoy, I've enjoyed this beer. I have.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a bad beer.
Nope.
I'm just saying it's not what it was.
It doesn't have the bite that I remember.
People
3
might
years
want to
ago.
argue with me. Comment down below if you've had Swish, if you think it's still the same, if you had it back in the day. I say no. But that's just me and my palate. I don't think it's as good as it once was.
It may not be good as it once was, but it's still a very decent beer.
It is. And
Yep.
But I mean, it
was
just so much fun.
And I'll tell
Try
you
to get
something
it.
about Bissell. There's been, in 3.5 years, 2 beers I didn't care for. One of them was, I think, a Saison.
Mm.
I didn't care for it. And the Mentation. And the Mentation,
Great
they
beer.
can take it and stick it right up someone's ass because that's what it smells like. It is the most disgusting smelling and tasting beer. And that is nothing on Bissell. That is my own personal
Yeah,
preference.
as I said, that was about the height of the whole, whatever you want to call it, the beer line culture was at its peak. And so that year, so Swish season runs from October to April. And that April, the last release, they had 565 cases.
Holy.
So you can see how they just kept pumping out more and more, trying to sell enough to have enough for everyone. And it was usually 3-4 packs a person. They could have dropped it down even more, like Treehouse, where they used to get like 4 or 6 cans when they needed their releases back then.
Well, even at Treehouse now, you can go and only get 2 pours. So, they're very limited
Right.
on what you can get.
Not for pours, but cans are like...
No, but I'm saying their cans are limited, but their pours are also limited too. Like
but their cans aren't as limited now. I'm saying back then, you could get... I used to see, I never went to them, some of the Treehouse releases, you get 6 cans. Like, what's the point of even going?
I think this is the only review we've ever done that I've actually finished a beer.
No, I think there's been others.
I don't think so.
By 2017, they were still pumping it out. It was still a thing.
And so at
It
2017,
started to slow down.
where were they at as far as case numbers?
So they started the 2017 season in October at 460 cases for the first one. And then most of that season, it was like 300 to 400 cases per release.
And they were going through
Still
it, and
cranking
probably
it out.
not everybody got their beer.
Yeah, so I saw the end of 2019, so this is a couple years later, 500 plus cases for the last release in 2019. October of 2019, on the first day, is the first time that I saw that opening day didn't all sell out, and 11 cases made it the next day. So that was shortly before COVID. COVID hit the end of that Swish season.
And so I'm sure some people at that point
But the
were
line
even-
culture was already starting to become a thing of the
Yeah.
past because there was so much other good beer out there.
Mhm.
But that's just kind of a look at how over the years their production amped up
Right.
to just massive amounts, 565 cases at the peak. And then it kind of dropped off right before the COVID.
Right.
And then they started doing online sales, and those would sell out for pickups when everything was closed down.
Right.
But by then we could get it from Milo, and we could always get it.
We actually did a pickup in Portland though, one time.
Yeah, we did. When
We
were
did
down
one
there.
pickup down there.
But
But I will tell you, so coming from Milo, like the home delivery through COVID was great, was wonderful.
unreal.
Yeah, like you knew on Thursday,
And they
you
made the
ordered on
shutdown a
Thursday, your
lot more
delivery was
bearable.
going to be here, and you were going to have good beer for the next week.
Yeah. And then, so the last thing I could really remember about the releases back then was at One Industrial Way, the original Bissell
Yep.
Brewery, when there would be like 100 to 200 people. It wasn't quite to the insanity level yet. Like I talked about when like 1,000 people showed up. They'd have free donuts from Coffee, or Holy Donut would be there with free donuts, and Coffee by Design had free coffee. So,
Yep.
and most all the releases out there in the cold, at least you're getting free donuts and free coffee.
Free coffee.
So what would you rank that beer you just drank?
Probably 3 years ago, I would have given it pretty close to a 5. I'm still going to give it a 4.5.
You are?
Yep. So it doesn't have the bite that I remember in the beginning, but I think that the flavor is still really good.
I've checked into this beer 240 times, so that shows you.
And not probably every time you've had one.
No, but that's a time to check in. So I've been trying to get. I've been on a mission to have more substance check-ins than Swish, and I'm getting there. And I always gave it a 5. It was a perfect beer
Yeah.
for me. These days I'd throw it around a 4.
Yeah, so no,
It just doesn't hit with me that much.
I still give it a 4.5 because I still really like the flavor of it. So I wish it
And other
had.
people like it better now than it used to be, but no.
I wish it had a little more dankness, and I wish it had still that bite that I remember, like that on the
Yeah.
back of your tongue bite when I first had it 3.5 years ago. But I still really like the flavor, so I would hold strong on a 4.5. So we collectively a 4.25.
106,000 people have checked in on Untapped, and it gets a 4.51.
So I
So that's
was right spot on.
definitely like that's an A+ beer on
Yep.
Untapped as far as the ratings go on.
Yeah,
there.
and I would agree with that. I really think a 4.5 is fair.
59 of our friends on Untapped, Best Beers in Me, asked, we like to see what you're drinking. They give it a 4.60. So the friends respect the beer. I always did. It just isn't what I'm looking for these days. So it is what it is. People still love it. I'm not going to say it's not good, but it's not, to me, it's no longer The beer.
So you can say it's no longer the beer what it was, but you have to.
But for the longest time it was.
But you have to say it's still a good beer.
I don't have to say anything, but
Well, but you should
it's still a decent
because it is.
People still seek it out, and
Right.
people still love it. Absolutely. So, if you've had it, let us know. Let's talk about Swish, talk about Bissell Brush, talk about me and beer, talk about beer, wine culture, and talk about whatever you want down in the comments. Let's get a conversation going about it.
Hit the bell, like, subscribe,
Do the things.
do all the things.
We're going to get out of here on this
So I
one.
don't have anything to cheers with, but
It's a long review. If you've stuck this far,
okay.
cheers to you.
But this is review number 50, so
Number 50.
Yeah.
Something that I know a little bit about Swish.
Right.
Something I like to had to walk down memory lane.
exactly.
So.
All right.
All right, we're on to the next. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.